evening, people, technology and innovation. Welcome to BMA and welcome to Wokhar Towers. This evening is basically around 3-4 basic areas. One is there is going to be a keynote address by Dr. Adil Malia. There is going to be a panel discussion on the theme which is in front of you, and we have 4 very, very experienced panelists with us. Thank you all my friends for joining this evening. And after that, we also have an announcement about BMA Innothon. And I repeat the word BMA Innothon. Innothon comes from innovation plus hackathon. So this is something unique to BMA. Innovation and hackathon both combined in one. And then we have some recognition for those professional organizations and the individuals and the leaders who have been seen as contributing something exceptional in their own areas, and we have those who have joined us this evening. So we'll be recognizing them as well. So that's the spread of the evening. And as a starting, to start with? Okay. Okay, so in your life, you meet with some very special people. And I have somebody like this in the crowd today, Dr. Adil Malia. And this is not the first time that he has obliged me, honestly, at a very, very short notice. When I was in my previous organization, previous organization, every time I have requested, he has always obliged me. And Adil, thank you so much for being with us today. So Dr. Adil Malia is a very respected name in the field of HR. More than 35 years of experience, leadership experience in India, outside India, in very marquee names: Coca-Cola, GE, Al-Futain, and last assignment was the group CHRO for SR Group. Very large assignment, and of late, he has just started his own consulting organization, The Firm, and he is the chief executive of this organization. The Firm specializes in very unique, very niche areas of operational and leadership excellence in all areas of business. Adil, we are truly, truly indebted to you for your joining us. Thank you so much. Adil also has been not only he is my guru, my mentor, he has also been my ex-boss, and he was the one who gave me an opportunity to work outside India as well, which has been truly unique for me, for my career. So Adil, a very warm welcome to you. Thank you so much. So may I request, a welcome for Adil has to be a welcome for Adil-like. Please give a big round of applause. Adil, may I request you, all yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Prem. Thank you, Doc, for inviting me to speak out here. I have told Prem half a dozen times that on a subject like this, I don't have any keys. And after the demonetization, I certainly do not have the notes. I prefer to deal with check. So therefore, key and notes are things which don't really go well with the evening. Also, it's a very beautiful evening. I wish it was much more a comfortable recreational evening than a theme that we had to talk in terms of hardcore real-term businesses. But considering the fact that you selected such a theme to talk on, let's involve and engage ourselves with some meaningful discussions and key nuggets to speak about on this subject. There's a very beautiful Rumi quote. It says, "Mukhtasar si zindagi ke ajeeb ye afsane hain. यहाँ तीर भी चलाने हैं और परिंदों को भी बचाने हैं." Look at the beauty of it. We are living in a world of paradoxes where on the one hand we are supposed to be cutting edge mercenaries trying to create values and focusing on every element that creates value for us. On the other is a nuance that we work with our people, and therefore we got to be continuously be mindful of how we are dealing with our people, irrespective of the fact whether value gets created or not. And what a beautiful parody he talks about thousands of years before, when he never really experienced anything that you and I call VUCA times, but the sentiments were very, very critical. We live in a world of what is called a world of punctuated equilibrium. And some of you may have heard of it, some of you may have not heard of it. If you look and trace the history of mankind from the time when it began, millions of years ago, you will find that change was happening. It was never a steady state world, but changes were happening in a very, very slow stage. So some changes were happening, changes were happening, changes were happening. If you were to draw a graph, you would find those small changes happening, but changes were happening. And millions of years of steady state growth was subsequently followed by a small wedge in which so many changes were happening that by the time you realize what change was happening, a new change would come, and by the time you would decode that change, yet another change would come, and something else would happen, and by the time you break the, yet another change would come in a short span of time. And around that time when so many changes are made, a predominant technology emerges. And then around those technologies, another million years of steady state growth goes. So steady state, wedge which is punctuated by one too many changes, and then again around the technology which emerges as predominant technology, another million years of steady state, till another wedge follows and similar other changes happen. I keep giving examples and I repeat it because it is so critical. Despite of repeating, people don't catch it. It took Thomas Alva Edison some 112 years to convert the concept of electricity into a consumable product called the electric bulb. 112 years of time. It took refrigerator manufacturers 65 years to come to a conclusion that a refrigerator could have a color other than white. It took ceiling fan manufacturers 45 years to come to a conclusion that actually ceiling fans can also have 4 wings. It is not necessary to have 3 wings only. It took 85 years after men were driving automatic cars on the roads to come to a conclusion that the luggage that people carry on railway stations can also have wheels. They don't need to carry it on their heads. Whilst on the other hand, 85 years since automatic cars were going on into the road. The sheer application of science and knowledge from one domain and its rebound application into another domain was taking that point of time. But look at what is happening in the times that we are in. Look at the number of changes that are happening. If you go and buy a telephone today, and by the time you decode how many Twitters and how many tweets and how many switches it has and what it can do for you, by the time you decode that and go for another phone of the same type because you somehow succeeded in learning it, chances are they will tell you that that phone is not available and you will have to wait for a new model to come out. So thousands of years of slow steady state growth followed and succeeded by a wedge in which hundreds and hundreds of changes are happening around which a predominant technology will come up. And this throws up a certain paradox of life which all of us are facing. And if you look at those paradoxes, let's look at what is the economic reality that we are vacillating for ourselves in. On the one hand, if you will see, there is a lot of prosperity. If you will see around the skyline out here, I used to as a child come to Bandra, what is the theater, open air theater which used to be there, and then for hundreds of acres there was nothing out there. And if you look at the skyline today, you will see and wonder if it is the same place that you ever visited once upon a time. So on the one hand, there is a sense of prosperity. And yet on the other hand, simultaneously, you will also see a state of gloom, a state of sadness, a state of things not working, poverty amass. So a paradox of both these which is caused by the changing economy. Look at the social reality. On the one hand, people are trying for aspirational things, and on the other hand, simultaneously, they are also facing existential questions of whether they should be living or not living in this kind of an existence that they have to etch out with. Look at the personal level. At the personal level, what is happening? The emotional reality is that we are socially connected and familiarly disconnected. Socially connected with everyone in the world. You could have a friend on your Twitter and your LinkedIn which is somewhere thousands and thousands of miles away and with whom you are even discussing whether you went to the loo or not, or whether you came to this 9th floor of a beautiful building over which you are listening to a session or not. Socially connected, but familiarly disconnected. a range of people who are more comfortable communicating over the screen, but uncomfortable communicating through the skin. So between the skin communication and the screen communication, this entire change is happening around, as you will see. And what do we see around? Rightly, one poet says, ये ख्वाहिशों के काफिले भी ऐसे हैं, कमबख्त वहीं से गुजरते हैं जहां रास्ते नहीं होते. Just when you try to find out the answer, you will find that someone has changed the question paper. Just when you try and find the key to the mistaken lock, and you will find that someone has gone and changed the lock. Just when the markets were, just when there was a realization that demonetization had just got over and we have found some equations on how to go ahead with life, then suddenly we found that we were once again back into the GST regime, impacting our businesses. Just when we got out of that, we suddenly realized that banks had bombed and actually NPAs are happening, and suddenly whatever you found was the equation is no longer the equation because banks are not willing to give you a loan, NBFCs are bunking up. Simultaneously, your markets are drying out, your customers are not coming back to you, your revenues are not showing up, your profits are going down. And the central theme somehow of the belief around this is that the entire disruption is caused by technology, which is changing around. Not realizing, if you look at the economy today, there are 6 very predominant tectonic changes happening, and be mindful of those because those changes are actually impacting. And when the consolidation of the 6 tectonic changes which are happening in the market come into effect, it is going to impact you, me, and everyone, not only as human beings and consumers, but the society that we will leave behind for our people. Which are these 6 changes that we are talking about? One is globalization, and we will talk 2 minutes about it. The second is Aadhaarization. This entire consolidation of data under what we call the Aadhaar cards. It is only a label we are using, but the entire Aadhaarization of the economy and what is going to happen. The entire Uberization of talent, because Uberization is a fantastic concept, not limited only to the taxi services and telephone taxi services, but tomorrow and in the future, your talent is going to be Uberized, and how it is going to be impacting you and me and all in the industry. Socialization of listening, because whenever you are speaking or leaving messages, someone somewhere unseen to you is listening to what you are doing, what you are buying, what you are communicating, on which day what is happening. Someone is socially listening to you, and therefore what is that social listening going to do for you? Digitization and predictive analysis, and the 3D replication of production are some of the 6 changes that you got to be mindful of. Do not broad brush it in a common category called digitization and believe that you will use the word digitization, which predominantly means we will buy some ERP and put an ERP in place, and this is our concept of digitization. The entire 6 tectonic changes which are happening in the economy are going to change the entire way in which you and I not only live and not only how we do our businesses, but is going to change the way the future of life is going to be happening on this universe, because that's how it is. Let me give you one example. In China today, there is so much of social happening that people who have been given credit points, if you go to a supermarket and buy a pack of cigarettes, from the credit you are given -10. If you buy a pack of milk, you are given +15. If you go and buy a condom, you will be given -25. But if you go and buy a vegetable, you will be given a +45. Now, what does the government in such a situation do is actually influenced by virtue of centralization of data and is able to change the impact of what you and I are going to be doing, not only in terms of our work lives, but also in terms of what you eat, what you will buy, what you will not buy, how therefore your family will get influenced, and how things will happen, influenced by a set of these 6 tectonic changes which are simultaneously coming to you. And naturally, it is disturbing the order in which you and I are used to living in this society, and therefore you and I are going to be feeling absolutely disturbed and uncomfortable in the given situation. We spoke about globalization but barely touched. Look at what is happening in terms of the entire 6 or 7 elements of what happens in a commercial market. On the one hand, let's talk about what are these 6 elements. Number one is we define markets as a certain geographic boundary. Ownership was a very critical element of business. Supply chain is a very critical element of business. Competition and competitor is a very important element of business. Money is a very important business element. And around these 6 or 7 elements of what really makes a commercial market, if you will see the trend of changes happening, you will realize that unknown to you, because we are breathing the air as the changes are happening, we have not realized it, but we have moved a long way from what we were used to, and because we are breathing, what we are now used to in the same domains of 6 or 7 changes in the commercial markets. We no longer are dependent on a geographic definition of boundary. You can today buy a pizza, which is an Italian product, a phone call away and Swiggy will deliver it to you. You can have a shirt which is made in Bangladesh. You can have a call center call coming to you, coming from somewhere in Jaipur or Madhya Pradesh or some place like that. You could actually have a Banarasi sari made in China. Why made in China? Because the global world has changed and we foolishly believe, but India is not the largest producer of Banarasi saris. Several years ago, China took the idea that they were actually the largest kind of producers of raw silk, and therefore what they needed was some set of expertise and skill sets to make that raw silk into silk saris and to be sold back to India. They took some 200 silk weavers from India, trained, set up those big looms out there in China, and now import the Banarasi saris. Incidentally, your Lord Ganesha electric lights which you use are all made in China. So that is what the global world is going to be doing for you. Don't believe it is happening to someone else's business, because that's something that we always want to believe. It never happens to me. I am not going to die. I will not die. Everyone else dies. Likewise, we have this tendency to believe that our businesses will not impact it. Unknown to us, our businesses are going to be impacted, and that's how it's going to be. And in this domain, because we have limited time, and I'm quite used to speaking for long hours at ISB and all the other management schools, I want to cut it all out and bring it down within the limited time of 20 minutes, of which I think 10 must already have passed. So in these changes that are happening in the universe that we are talking about, in fact, there's again a very beautiful quote of Rumi. He says, "है शौक है सफर ऐसा कि एक मुद्दत से हमने मंजिल भी न पाई और रास्ता भी न बदला." We have been talking about the same things, knowingly, knowledgeably about what are the changes happening, and despite the fact that we are not reaching the end that we want to reach, we have not even made any plans to change the road on which we are traveling. We continue to do the same thing that we are doing, presuming that that same thing, if we continue to do with God's blessings, prayers, maybe this thunder will pass away and we will reach the destination we want to reach. So many of our clients, when we do our consulting, ask, "Saab, ye kab change ho jayega? Sab wapas seedha kab ho jayega?" How do we tell them that ye seedha nahi hone wala bhaiya? This is the nature of the animal that you are going to be living with. In fact, it's going to be more tense, it's going to be more worse, because more and more the number of changes which are happening are going to be hitting you. The total number of patents registered in America in last 5 years is 3 times higher than the total patents registered in American history for the period before that. Only in 5 years, 3 times more patents registered compared to the history 5 years before in the entire American patent science. So you can imagine how many new inventions are getting patented. And we told you that the time from invention to its commercial application is going to be collapsing. Therefore, you can now imagine that if today the changes you are facing are these, what are the changes that technology is going to be hitting you with, and what therefore you should be doing to be able to cope with this changing technology. Certainly you can't be sitting on the 9th floor of this wonderful building and over a set of drinks believe that these changes are going to happen just because you quietly are listening to it. Somewhere down the line, you will have to take charge of the situation. You will have to do something about it, and only then this change is going to be happening. Technology is one of the critical factors that is changing, but over and above, there are many, many other such elements which are changing, which you will have to be mindful of. But what is important are 3 critical things. Anyways, I'm not reading from it, so it's okay. Three critical things you got to be mindful of: customer, talent, and realization that the change is happening and therefore you have to do something. And that is one of the most important. The first and foremost realization that the paradigms have changed doesn't seem to be hitting the people out here. When paradigms are changing, the rules, the processes, the practices, the customer orientation, your old supply chain methods, your way, go-to-market strategies, all which were giving you results in the given paradigm, when the paradigm shifts, no longer apply. And therefore, when it zeroizes, what is the reaction we have seen companies do? What are the reactions we see? The first reaction we see is startled, in a state of pause. They are like this. First, they are startled. Ye kya ho gaya? Why are our old processes, systems not working? Why are our customers not coming to us? Why are we not able to generate the profits we were able to generate earlier? And therefore, there is this state of startledness. And there is a pause where you are frozen in a situation that you were in, not doing anything else, but just startled and in a pause. Thereafter, there is what is called a moment and phase of agility, which means some realization dawns on you that, boss, ab kitna aisa pose karke rakhenge, we have to do something about it, otherwise our survival questions are going to come. So the change comes in once the agility makes the person realize that paradigm has shifted and I need to do something. And after that change comes, which we call in the phase of design thinking, and post phase of design thinking, the change transformation. And all this has to be done. Whilst I had come with a much larger piece of what I would be talking to you, I don't want to really hog the time which is out here, because it's only a keynote speaking. And as I said, I don't have the notes which are working, nor the keys that I need to have. Who is going to take charge of the situation? Who is going to make this change? Are we looking at some new sets of animals which are going to replace the dinosaurs, who will come with some 6 hands, 7 heads, 3 eyes, like what we see the characters out of Star Wars? Or is it people like you and me of the new generation which are going to come in and make the changes happen despite the changes which are happening in the environment? Rightly they say that ख्वाहिशों से नहीं गिरते फूल दामन में, ख्वाहिशों से नहीं गिरते फूल दामन में, वक्त की साख को हिलाना होगा, कुछ नहीं होगा अंधेरों को कोसने से, अपने हिस्से का दिया खुद ही जलाना होगा. No one is going to come and help you out. You will have to train the next generation of your people who are going to be ensuring the continuity of your businesses, who are going to ensure that the continuity of your value creation is going. This is the reality of the marketplace over which you have no control. So better you learn to build the capabilities, and that's the only thing. If you were to ask me what is that one thing that I would leave behind with you, is what is it that if I had a son and I had to tell him what is that one capability I would build in him, I would say it's only one thing. Learn to learn. Build the capability to learn, because the model of learning has changed. It is no longer a model where you say, learn and remember. We all learned it as learn and remember. We are living in an age where we are saying, learn and forget, because if you continue to remember, it will come in the way of your new learning. I wish you good luck, and I wish you will have a great session. Thank you.
Round of applause for Adil, please.
Thank you.
Adil, thank you so much. That was fabulous. Yes. Adil, अपने हिस्से का दिया खुद ही जलाना होगा. I think that was just fabulous. Adil, may I request you to once again step up, not for a lecture, but for a small act. And may I also request my boss, Dr. Murtaza.
I must have scared you.
No, not really. You can never scare. You actually inspire all of us. So a small token of respect for you, a small memento. Thank you so much. Next one is a talk, a presentation by the president of BMA, Dr. Murtaza Khurakiwala. So we have the presentation up, Varun.
To all of you, thank you so much for gracing this occasion. I would really like to appreciate each and every one of you. In our busy lives, we are taking out some time over here. I hope the evening is not only a social contribution in our own way, but is also educational, enlightening, and in some way we learn. As Dr. Adil said, we are here to learn. And I think I would like to appreciate Dr. Adil's superlative performance. I think he was energy house in the evening, late in the day, and it is a pleasure to meet you, and thank you for your enlightening words. And I agree, I think we are living in a time of massive change that I think no one has ever seen in their life earlier. As he was saying, in the last 5 years, the number of innovations and patents that is there in the US is more than the entire history. So we are living in a change, in an era of massive change, massive disruption. Therefore, the theme of the night is innovation, technology, and HR. And basically, I think what we want to capture over here is what is innovation that is taking place, how technology is impacting all of us, and from a people point of view, what does it mean? What does it mean for all of us as individuals in our individual capacity, as individuals, as persons in a social context, but also what it means, I think, from a professional context of having employees in the organization, of engaging employees, motivating employees, and achieving our organizational objectives and performance objectives that we have. And in the middle of this innovation that takes place, on one hand, technology that causes associations and dissociations, how as an organization we can adapt, we can learn, and move ahead in this context. So that is the theme for the night. Let me tell you a little bit, since in this year I am the president of BMA, let me fulfill my presidential obligation of BMA and tell you a little bit about Bombay Management Association. It is an organization basically that is there towards management excellence. It is driven towards achieving, encouraging, facilitating, and inspiring management excellence. We have been as an association there for the last 64 years. It is parent is the All India Management Association, and we have, the BMA has won 7 years the best local management association award. We have among our membership 37 reputed management institutes who are part of the membership of the Bombay Management Associate. We have corporate members, more than 70 corporate members, and we have more than 1,000 individual professionals. So objective of BMA is to see how we can add value to our members and resources in terms of creating value. And what we try to do is we identify what is the purpose of BMA, why do we exist, what is the real reason, and what is the value that BMA can add. And I think what BMA can do is that there is a lot of knowledge, there's a lot of information, and a lot of things that are happening all around the world. How we can instill that, and what is the wisdom or what is the insight that comes out of that knowledge, is where BMA can, through thought leadership, through various conventions, conferences, expert lectures, so how we can provide insight and not just data. In data they say junk in, junk out, but the question is data is not knowledge and knowledge is not insight. So how as an organization we can create value through knowledge and insight. We are also a ground for ideation. I think being an association, being a network, and having people and members from diverse backgrounds, because of diversity itself and because of association and diversity, there can be ideation. We all come from different backgrounds, having different expertise and different ways, different experiences, and all of us, when we come together, can cultivate new ideas and new knowledge in our associations. The other purpose, I think, is always to innovate. And I strongly believe that if you do the same thing every day, you will get the same result. And at the end of the day, I think because change is so rapid and because things are moving so fast, unless you are able to have a mindset of thinking afresh, thinking new, looking at the same thing and coming with new ideas, having innovation as a fundamental mindset of management, I think we will never be ahead of the game, we will always be behind. So innovation is a very primary requisite of a management mindset that we should have, and where BMA should take a leadership position in trying to create such associations. And I think at the end of the day, our idea is to create and cultivate and foster excellence. And when we meet people of excellence, we hear great success stories. I think we all get inspired. And I think the idea is how we can, through our own successes, share those successes, share those failures, and through that create inspiration. And we get inspired by listening to such things, and we inspire other people. So I think that is what we would like to do. In terms of certain specifics, I think one of the things is a thought leadership. We try to provide thought leadership in changing times, in transforming times. Insight, as I said, understanding the world and how it will impact through wisdom and knowledge. Create a vision for the future. I think, as we all know, that when there is a rapid change, there is also a lot of confusion that takes place. What is the right thing to do? How the world will be tomorrow? And in these changing times, it is sometimes difficult, and very often difficult, that there is a chaos. But I think when you go into the chaos and you understand all the factors and the variables and all the dynamics, through going through that chaos, you get clarity. So I think through chaos, going into chaos, you are able to get a more clearer picture of what is the things that impact us, what will be really valuable, what will be significant, not significant. And that is where I think you can create a vision for yourself, for your organization, and for your future. Execution, I think there are a lot of training programs, manager development programs, and a lot of things that we look in terms of creating execution capabilities within organizations and professionals. And as an association, because of our membership, because of these events, because of coming together, there's networking, there's value addition, there is creation. And at the end of the day, I think we are all here to learn. None of us can say that we know what is the right thing, or we know everything. So as long as we have a mindset of learning, of accepting, of unlearning and learning again, I think that is what the culture is. And I think the idea at the end of the day is, wherever we are, if you become associated with BMA events, and if you also contribute in BMA events, at the end of the day, the idea is we get better through our association with BMA. BMA can help you also get better in various ways, as I have just mentioned. And what are the specific things that we are doing in terms of actions or programs that are providing these values and helping us get better? One is a CEO forum. I think we had some time back a CEO conceptual forum. We are looking to restart and activate that. So certain programs at a CEO level where we will be looking at business simulation projects, conferences. Just earlier we had a digital leadership conference, and that went very well. Mr. Mohandas Pai was our keynote speaker over there, and it was a great success. We are planning to have a scaling up event later in the year, which is for SMEs and startups, and basically to address what are the needs of the SMEs and startups and how they can scale up. Similarly, I think one of the things that we are going to be discussing today is Innothon. We have BMA awards that basically recognize excellence in various fields, whether it is in entrepreneurship or management, man of the year, or leader of the year. So we recognize excellence, and fellowship networking events, and new world manager development programs, where we look at what are the skills that are required for managers of the future. So future managers will require certain skills. So the World Economic Forum has identified top 10 skills which will be required in the future. We have got a sense of that, and we are developing programs on how we can address some of those skills. And I think the whole startup culture, SME culture, entrepreneurial culture which is there is gaining a momentum. In fact, I think India is the third or the fourth largest country with startups in the world. After US and China, I believe India has the largest startups, maybe 10 or 15,000 startups we have. And it's a very strong culture. Bangalore, Mumbai and Delhi are the three major hubs of startups in India. And Mumbai being one of the financial centers with a strong startup culture, we'll be looking at seeing how we can address some of those needs. So I think I don't want to take more of your time. The event is mainly for innovation and technology and HR. Wanted to give you a glimpse of what BMA is, its purpose, the activities that it is doing, and would love to have your contribution, your association in any way with BMA to help us get better and serve the needs of society in this ever-changing and dynamic world where we can add value, contribute and promote excellence. I think there is a very famous quote, progress is impossible without change, and those who cannot change their minds cannot change anything. So change begins in our minds. If we recognize change, if we see the world is changing and we understand that, and then we move ahead and change and embrace the change and change yourself. So thank you very much. Have a great evening. Thank you all for coming and look forward to a great interaction in the evening session. Thank you, Prem.
An outstanding description of the offerings of BMA. So moving forward, we have now the panel discussion, and the panel discussion is also around the same theme, that is innovation, people and technology. And can we get the volunteers to arrange for the chairs for the panel? Meantime, I want to show you one small film. And this film is around a sports called pole vault. I'm sure many of you would have seen, heard, and read about Sergey Bubka. By the way, some of people may not be here, may also have seen Prem Singh in action as a pole vaulter, because I have also been a pole vaulter, by the way, in the university. So, it's a very small film. By the way, just because I said that I have also been a pole vaulter, it's not my movie. Well, so I think it's easy for me. It's a Frenchman, Renaud Levigny. That's the name. So, gentlemen, if you see this movie very carefully, very minutely, there are a couple of things that get combined. Flawless execution, precision in planning, and execution to the point T, and leveraging all the resources that you have at your command, physical, mental, everything. If you look at the organizations today, and when you talk about the excellence, as Adil said it, and as Dr. Murtaza also mentioned, excellence results when you have everything getting combined in a very synchronized. And what we are going to discuss today is trying to learn those lessons of excellence from three major pillars of organizations, that is people, technology, and innovation. So I have great pleasure to present to you the four very experienced panelists. So may I request all of them to come on the dais. So first one is Pankaj. Pankaj is a very great friend, very dear friend, who has been very passionate in the area of automation and technology. And Pankaj, thank you so much. I know that you had an emergency last evening, very serious emergency in the family, but I think Pankaj is a man who means commitment has to be honored. And Pankaj, we really, really thank you so much. A big round of applause for Pankaj. Next one is Mayur. Mayur Mayur is a technology expert, Global Chief Information Officer of Lupin. Again, a very passionate man in the area of digital technology, analytics, predictability of the analytics, and what have you. Next one, we have, as they say, that nothing is complete without women power. And Ritu actually terrorized all of us. And when she said, Prem, हमको कब मन आको. Ritu, आपको हम कम कभी भी नहीं आते. So Ritu, thank you so much for accepting our invitation. Thank you for being with us. Ritu heads HR for TCS, very large organization, very passionate about people, very passionate about culture, and a very prolific speaker. Thank you, Ritu, once again. Next one is a person from a very different kind of a field, Mr. Hanuman Tripathi. He's an entrepreneur who is a very good combination of technology, automation, and what technology can deliver in terms of predictability of success. So, Mr. Tripathi, a very warm welcome to the forum. So, friends, this is a very good mix of HR, technology, business organization, and we have a very good diversity of all the levels, all the major functions. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us. So, the format of this forum, this discussion is going to be absolutely question and answer based. There will be some questions that I'll be asking, and there will be a dedicated slot which will be dedicated for the audience. So my first question is to the lady of the house or lady of the forum. So Ritu, you actually succeeded in terrorizing us, and therefore I better put my question first to you. So Ritu, we all know that we are in the age of Gen Y, Gen Z is not too far off, and actually in another 5 to 7 years, large number of population workforce will be the people who are in the colleges or in the schools, which we call as Gen Z. So very quick question to you, Ritu, is that the way these kids work, think, etc. is very different compared to the typical organizational norms or boundaries, etc. How do you make sure that you really leverage what these kids bring to the table and the fact that they are also tech savvy? So how do you really ensure that this tech savviness actually works for the benefit of organization?
I'm hoping that the question you asked me first was not because always ladies first, because that has become passé right now. And I say this to set the tone for the question, answer to the question.
Partly yes, by the way.
Yeah, so if that was even partly true, avoid it next time. The company which I represent, TCS, actually the question becomes nullified because we have 85% of the people who are Gen Y. In a workforce of 410,000 people, 85% are Gen Y. Very soon in the next 2 years, Gen Z will enter the workforce. 15% of us, dinosauric age, which is Gen X and baby boomers, I think we better be aware and roll up our sleeves, which we did about 10-15 years ago, that if we have to survive, we have to walk rubbing shoulders with Gen Y. So, large number, in not only in this your company or my company, but also in the country that we live in, the power of demographic dividend, which all of us know, actually is represented by Gen Y. They have made all the baby boomer Gen X tech savvy already. The old age was optimizing for certainty, which was represented by defined structures, whereas we all geared up to optimize for uncertainty. What is going to come tomorrow? None of us knew, none of us know. So how do we optimize the company to continue to grow? One of the things which I did before I came here was just to refresh my mind that X number of years, I'm not going to put a number to this, X number of years, whether it is 10 or 20, the structures, the reporting hierarchies drove us. We were told what to do and that's what we did. Today, that exactly opposite is happening. We don't know, we are not given any instructions. Agile is the future, and hierarchies have been broken. So the companies which have adopted to this change as soon as possible or as early as possible are the ones who are booming ahead. And that's what I will leave it as a thought before I move on to the next question. Thank you.
Thank you, Ritu. My next question is to Pankaj. So, Pankaj, there is a lot that is happening around technology, around disruption, etc., and we all see it. According to you, in terms of the future, what are the major things that are likely to happen? And is it correct that this disruption in technology that is coming up, would it end up displacing a lot of humans? That's a question which is also being raised.
So, good evening, friends, and I hope people at the end can hear us. So, Dr. Murtaza, Prem, and everyone, thank you for calling us here. I think the question that's being asked is very controversial one, because whenever I said anything, it is being misread, but the reality is 1/3 of the jobs are not going to be relevant as we move forward. And if we take this number just in hindsight, if you look at in Indian context, only 10% of workforce is organized, Prem. Out of this 10%, if 1/3 of the jobs are going to go away, what will happen to India market? So it's a scary thought, but the reality is on the counter, there are equally new number of jobs which are coming up, but we don't have the workforce which is ready for it. So that's a conflict we are living in. The biggest problem with this conflict is that we all assume that job loss is a bigger problem, but that's not the problem. The real problem is job creation is not happening at that pace that we thought. So that's the equilibrium that we are missing. Suddenly, user has become far more powerful than the buyer. When I say buyer, buyer is departments like HR, IT, finance. But suddenly, user has become more important, and user is defining and saying the experience that I have on a WhatsApp or on a Google, why don't I get it in enterprise systems? I think Adil touched upon when he mentioned that traditional ERP, or you put an ERP, that's not digitization. So I think that's the biggest conflict that we all are witnessing, where user is becoming far more powerful and demanding from the departments and the management, the so-called management, that I won't accept what you have offered to me. So I see two applications of it. Any of you have visited WeWorks? Have you heard of co-working space WeWork, right? Many of you, it's right here. So just go and experience or work there for 2 hours. You will realize what I'm saying. If we still believe that offices are not going to be like this, we are living in a world which is not true. The way these organizations are growing, WeWork is just one example. The way infra is designed, there are no cabins. It's not just about not having cabins. It's just about how collaboration is breeded there. So the physical workspace itself is changing. And the last point, if you reflect it now onto the digital infrastructure you have in your office, tell me really what is the most efficient tool for your work? It's not email, it's your WhatsApp. Right? It's the reality. And banks, financial industry. So I have 5 lakh people who use PeopleStrong technology. The biggest challenge I had was to convince people that traditional ERPs won't work. So the biggest shift happened in CIOs 3 years ago, where they said, okay, enough of traditional ERPs. We are going to pick up systems where the adoption is high. And the change is that this world of WhatsApp is the biggest app. And you know how much investment has happened in the last 3 years? About $200 million have been invested only in conversational systems. So emails are down by 30%. I don't know in your businesses, but in general, wherever conversational systems have been adopted, emails are down by 30%. Meetings are down by 20 to 25%. That's the impact it's having. I'm just giving one example. So this is the shift we are seeing in our physical infra. This is the shift we are seeing in digital ERPs. I think both are changing dramatically. So this is how it's going to change our work life, is my view.
Thank you, Pankaj. In fact, you made a mention about the job displacement, the human displacement versus the job creation. And that reminds me of a data that a study that was conducted by PwC in France about 5-6 years ago. And that was triggered by a lot of protests that were led by the labor parties and by the trade unions, which said that so many jobs have been taken away by the technology. So the research of PwC showed that the technology and the internet took away 500,000 jobs in the entire country. But they created 1.2 million new jobs. So therefore, there was a delta of 700,000 jobs in the entire country. Therefore, something gets out, many more things get in. So thank you, that was very useful. So I now move to Mayur. So Mayur, since you come from a large organization which has, and the large domains are really manufacturing and sales, and I think that's where the interest of the audience also will lie. So in terms of the artificial intelligence, machine learning, the technology application, the disruption, particularly in these two domains, in sales as well as in manufacturing, according to you, what are the major things that are happening currently and how it is likely to shape up? Your take.
So I think from the areas that you mentioned, which is manufacturing, sales, there is already a lot of automation, AI capability that's getting into the processes. So for example, if you look at the industries that have got disrupted right now, and if you list them out, it's industries like transportation where you see a great deal of disruption. And that's not just the consumer transportation that we see with the Ubers and the Olas, but also on driverless cars, for example. You see a lot of robotics that's currently happening on the logistics side as well. So I think there is going to be a lot of disruption in these areas, and we're already seeing it play out. The other area, and of course, when you see a disruption happening in transportation, it's not impacting just the transportation industry, but all related functions in corporates like us. We are going to see them getting disrupted. So we need to be ready for disruption in our inbound logistics, in our outbound logistics, for example. Similarly, on the manufacturing side, there is such a lot of automation on the shop floor. And with all the robotics that's currently at play there, we're going to see a lot of disruption on the shop floor. It's already happening. We're going to see more and more of it. Like Pankaj said, jobs are going to be replaced, but that does not mean, and that's not the real challenge. The real challenge is how to reskill the people whose jobs are getting replaced. So I think that's going to be the decision that we're going to have to make in the future.
Okay, thank you. That was a good one. Reskilling of people. Moving to Hanumant. Hanumant, there is a lot of discussion that's happening about innovation, and the theme of the topic of the evening is also innovation. Can you share any example where innovation has been used to solve some complex problems from your knowledge, or anything where it has been put to use to really resolve complex issues? Any examples or any take on that front?
So technology, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here. Thank you, Murtaza. Thank you yourself. Technology per se was always used for innovation. Technology was supposed to do something which a set of people were not able to deliver. So you take any 100 years and you will get many such examples. If you look at our generation, the one thing which really has hit us the most is the payment systems. And I come from the banking and financial technology. So I believe that the payment systems actually have turned around the way people have done banking for years together. So it has also, while there is a fear that technology can cause more hardships in terms of frauds and so on and so forth in online systems, the fact is it has strengthened the systems, strengthened our lives in such a manner that we are feeling so much more empowered because there are technology-based online systems available. If you see millions and millions of people getting Neriga payments, it has happened because of automation happening in the payments arena, or the banking going to the core of the population, which was not the case for last 50 years or 55 years. Also, the next biggest innovation as far as India is concerned or anywhere else in the world is the taxi app. If you realize that a simple innovation which any of us could have thought 10 years back or 20 years back actually helped to transform the way people safely travel today in a more comfortable manner without haggling with people. And at all points of time, any kind of a government system today which has got automated, whether it is licensing, your driving license, land records, or any kind of a information which you require from government, including RTI, is fully automated because of innovations which have happened largely in the space of collaboration and enterprise solutions. So there is, if I, given the time, this is a subject by itself, and it has thousands of examples to give in last few years. But these are some of the major activities, and most major, as you see the buying habits which have changed, it has become because of the e-commerce. We always believe that e-commerce will actually kill the shopping malls, but you have seen it has not happened. Both have thrived, although profitability is an issue on in both systems. But the fact that now a person sitting on the desk of the office in the leisure time is able to buy what the person wants in moments is a combination of e-commerce and payment systems coming together by way of innovation.
Okay, that was interesting. Thank you. So, Ritu, my next question is to you. We all see that the way the communications happen now, it's no longer the same. Emails are down, Pankaj made that point. And there is a lot of discussion that happens on the WhatsApp groups are there. People very quickly introduce a topic, there is a discussion that happens, and there is a conclusion that gets drawn. So there is a whole new culture of communication, connectivity that is evolving. And the offline and online identity of the people is also getting blurred. The behavior of the people comes into the play. And when you talk about behavior, then you also talk about responsible and not so responsible behavior. You manage a large organization and you manage a large workforce of Gen Y. According to you, would you like to recommend one or three things for the CHROs and the business heads and entrepreneurs here to navigate that kind of a stuff so that the right culture evolves? Because at the end of the day, as leaders, we also have a responsibility to ensure that technology gets utilized in a responsible manner and the responsible behavior is always ensured. Your take.
I want to make a disclaimer that I'm attempting to answer this question. I'm sitting here because I represent an organization and it is based on my experience in the organization. Otherwise, all of you are doing much greater things and you will have some ideas. So bear with me. When we, let's say old and new, I don't want to give a timeline to this. Employer was powerful. We had jobs to offer and people had aspirations to join the company. That has completely flipped. Today, we want employees to join us and they have a choice. So with this background, all of us, unless we are changing as of today or yesterday, we will not move forward. Transparency is the biggest learning that I have learned in my experience. From getting into a room, devising a policy, deciding what it should be, what impact it should be, has given up to a marketplace. We run hackathons or ideathons, very common words nowadays, and we poll 100, 200,000 people to give us ideas, and then we do dipstick survey, and then we run a policy and we decide whether the policy should be implemented or not. I myself, in my experience, would not have thought about this in my old avatar. How can I let anybody know what I have in mind? That change is very difficult, and that change has to be brought in. And all of us have to acknowledge that unless we change from the old mindset to this one, transparency completely. Which has led to second, which is confidence. There's so much from an MD to an CHRO to the down the line, the confidence generation has to happen to be able to recommend an idea and get beaten for it. I remember distinctly when we moved many, many years ago from annual bonus to quarterly bonus to monthly bonus to quarterly bonus. We were ripped apart. because we obviously followed old methodologies, and we, in our wisdom, we thought that the 2002, 2004 downturn was there, we will not be able to afford salaries. So if we convert it into a quarterly, we will be able to say it's a variable pay, so we can reduce it and all that. Employees killed us. Within a year, I had to confidently stand up and revert it back. That was a lesson I don't want any one of you to learn now, because we have technology to save us. The transparency led to confidence, and confidence led to, I would say, a very passe word, but delight, happiness, satisfaction among employees, that organizations, CHROs, MDs are not ashamed to stand up and say, I made a mistake, I want you to tell me what I want. I'll break here, but these are some of the 3 behaviors which encompass everything, which will give you an idea what I'm sharing with you as my experience.
Thank you, Ritu. That was very powerful. Now I think we'll ask the audience to ask their questions, and it's your opportunity. So we have another 15 minutes. We have total the, yes. Can we have a mic here, please?